Christina Taylor, also known as Tina Rehana, describes herself as mum, choreographer, and businesswoman. You can add #1 female founder, entrepreneur of the year, and changemaker to that list. Tina's worked with the likes of Stormzy, Giggs, Manchester United, and CBBC, and is making huge social impact through dance. Her story is beyond extraordinary, and it all begins and ends with purpose. And I can't wait to get started and dive into this conversation with her today. Hi, Tina.
Hi.
So lovely to have you.
Thanks so much for having me. I feel very flattered that you've asked me to come.
I've watched you from afar for quite a long time. You're obviously like quite a prominent figure in Manchester, but what I find the most inspiring, what I found the most inspiring about you is how focused and driven you are. Not only are you an amazing mum, and I know you massively prioritize family and your kids, but everything that you're doing on a social level through dance, like helping kids and massively transforming their lives, in addition to being a woman of colour and being, a role model, and you're young, you've only just turned 30, and all, there's so many things that you've achieved in your life, and we're going to talk about all of those because they're amazing. You've done it all on your own, and I think, it's so important for me to have people like you on the podcast because your story is going to help so many other people to realise that they can also drive and change their own lives. So let's start in the beginning because you're a really interesting mix because you're half Bengali and half black.
Yeah.
And when did you find out? You didn't always know that you were half Bengali, did you?
No. So I'm adopted, and I was put into care at 3 weeks old because my Bengali mother had a baby out of wedlock to my dad, and obviously it's 30 years ago. It's quite frowned upon, right? So I think apparently she was already in care because she was struggling with family dynamics, and they basically said they're not supporting her. So at 3 weeks old, I went straight into care, and I went into foster care with a lady called Nanny Hazel, who my adoptive mum was very kind and took me back to see until she, on a regular basis, until she passed away from cancer.
Wow.
Sorry, lost my track. But
how old are you when you were adopted?
I was adopted just after 18 months. So
Were you?
Yes, I was quite lucky in that. And I always used to feel really aggrieved that I only had 3 weeks before I was put into care. But when I started to understand, I don't know if you've heard of attachment theory, and the fact that if children are loved and hugged and cared for within the first, it can be as quick as 6 months, their brain can actually develop a lot smaller, and it can have lifelong impacts. So I realised further down the line that I was lucky. But I always thought I was black because my mum she told me I was adopted when I was 6 because obviously I was really young, I didn't understand it at 18 months. And then I remember when I was in high school, people kept saying to me, you're not black. And I was getting so frustrated. And I came home and said, Mum, they keep saying I'm not black and I'm really upset. And one time the teacher asked me what mix I am. She said, just say you're coolie, which in Jamaica is kind of like, obviously, like Jamaican Indian.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I kept saying to her, but they keep saying that I'm not, Mum. And she said, well, you are half Pakistani. So I said, well, you never told me that.
Wow.
So she was like, oh, I thought I did. And I was like, no, you never did. And then I kept saying to her, are you sure? Because I think my birth mum's name was Mia Begum, right? Which is the most Bengali name, surname.
Yeah.
So she was like, yeah, I'm sure. So I went to get my records at 18, 19. And then I found out I was actually Bengali, which I thought so with that surname, but you just kind of, it is whatever. So that's how and when I found out.
Wow. I mean, how did that change your own perception of your own identity? Because, that's quite a huge thing to like process and deal with.
Yeah. I was saying earlier, you know what? I always just saw myself as black and then I found out I was half Asian, or I thought I was half Pakistani. And then when I got into adulthood, obviously I found out I was half Bengali. And I think when I had that certainty of where my roots actually are, that is when I felt a bit more, I don't know about connected, but felt a bit more of an understanding that I am a woman of mixed heritage. It's actually quite ironic because apparently my birth mum wanted me placed in a Muslim family.
Did she?
But they told her that I'm too dark and that they think that it will cause me identity issues if I'm placed with an Asian family.
Yeah.
So they placed me with a black family, but most of my friends are actually Muslim.
Really?
Which, yeah, majority of my friends are Muslim, and I do have a couple of Indian friends, but not Bengali or Pakistani. So I think getting older, I've started to explore it lightly.
Yeah.
It's a bit difficult and sensitive to explore, I think, for me, because the moment that I delve into that, I understand that I then have to unravel a lot of issues, if that makes sense. So it's about when the right time is to do that, especially having children and whatnot. I just know I need to be in a good headspace with a bit of time where I'm not constantly on the go to be able to process it.
Yeah. So your your beginnings in life were challenging. You won't have a recollection of being a little child and going through that, but you will have been through stuff. How much of everything you've been through do you think has filtered through to how you are today in terms of how driven you are, how ambitious you are, how fearless you are?
Sure. For some reason, I just knew I was going to tear up today. Loads. And I always say this, and I try and do a lot of work with looked after children because it sounds really deep, but the thing that you have to process, I think, growing up is you don't understand it. And I think I've only just settled on it this year, is my mum and dad didn't want me enough. That's really difficult to process. When I was younger, I just thought, I just wasn't wanted. And I'm in a very loving home, loving family that have accepted me, and I'm very happy. But it still doesn't negate the fact that you're going to feel a deep sense of rejection.
Yeah.
And on my records, it said my dad he had 2 children already and a wife, and he refused to put his name on the birth certificate, so I couldn't find him because he already had his own family. So that, especially when I got my records at 18, 19, I ended up really depressed and on antidepressants because I just didn't expect to see that. I think I had this Tracy Beaker kind of dream that I was going to find my dad and everything was going to be fine because I had so much resentment towards my birth mum because she just didn't do enough to keep me. But then,
you know how old she was when
she was 18.
So she was really young.
She was really young, and as I've got older, I understand more, and I actually feel like the decision to have a child and give the child up for adoption is a lot braver than having an abortion. In some senses, I'm not saying, I hope that doesn't come across in the wrong way, but obviously
it's your personal story you're talking about yourself, isn't it?
Because as a woman, like you say, Muslim, out of wedlock, knowing that the repercussions that's going to have with her family, to decide to keep the child and still give the child a chance at life, I think personally is quite brave. So as I've got older, I feel a lot more at peace with it. But sorry, my story and the way I deal with life is, once you can realize or get over the fact that your own parents kind of didn't want you, there's no in the world or no sense of rejection that's ever going to cut as deep as that. So when you're trying to trailblaze or you're trying to do things in business, people can tell you no over and over again. It's just not going to cut the same.
So do you find that you can deal with that easier, or you don't internalize it as deeply as other people might do?
I think so. So. And I think also, no matter how I would try and frame it, I can't deny the fact that no matter what, that experience has still left me with a sense of feeling, especially at a younger age, like I need to prove my worth.
Yeah. I read something or I watched something recently about childhood and about things we experience and how it shapes us as adults. And when you have gone through that raw emotional experience yourself, it's really hard sometimes to get to a place where you can look back and be grateful because for the challenges that you've been through, because the truth is you would not be who you are today in terms of your resilience, your spirit, how much love, care and compassion you have for kids that may either in the care system or be brought up in that way. You would not have that had you not been through everything that you've been through. So there's two sides of the coin. One side is, but it's me, it's my story, and I feel hurt, really hurt by it. And then there's the other side of it, which is to look back and think and question, well, actually, who would I be had I just been born into a normal home, normal family, had both parents there that weren't, whatever it is, who would I actually, would I be the same person? And I think for my, things that I've been through in my own life, when I look at them and I think, right, I've got a choice, because actually the truth is I probably wouldn't be who I am today had I not been through those things. And some of them are horribly, heinously painful, horrible things that no one should have to go through. But I don't think I would be who I am today if I hadn't gone through those things. So, but everything you say is, I find it just so, like, I get really emotional when you talk about it too, because I come from that community. I come from an Asian community, and I know how difficult it is as a woman to just survive and be independent and have a life and have equality and be able to do the things that most men, are allowed to do. So when I think so many things have changed, but when I think about 30 years ago to your mum, I think, wow, like I can almost certainly imagine how terrified she would have been to be in that position. You know what I mean? So you got into dance, but you got into dance at a really young age. Was it about 13 you got into
13,
dance?
yeah.
Yeah, so talk to me about that. Like, did you always know you were good at dancing, or?
No, I was shocking, to be honest. But I think what it is I needed an emotional outlet. And I found being at home quite difficult for several reasons. And so I just wanted to be out the house a lot. Me and my sister have a really turbulent relationship.
Is she adopted too?
Yeah.
Okay.
From different families, and I mean, I love her to death, but we clashed a lot, and she had a lot going on in her own right. So a lot of the time I wanted to be out of the house at that point.
Yeah.
So I found a youth centre and, started a dance group. And I think that is why I do what I do, because I know that having that focus at that age really saved me. And it's really interesting, actually, because as an adult, I've had to go back to start dancing. And I started, if you probably noticed on my Instagram, working out a lot more and things, because I was so used to dealing with my emotions in that manner that when I stopped doing anything, I was all over the place.
Really?
So I had to find a way to channel it again, and it's been through dance again, but also exercising on a regular basis.
Yeah. So tell me, like, specifically with dance, because you've made so much social impact. What was your vision for, in terms of, I'm going to use this because it's helped me as a tool or a vehicle to help?
It's really interesting because I didn't understand what I was doing.
Really?
So I was in a youth centre and, I just brought in a few girls. So basically what happened first is I met a girl called Corinne, and she was starting a dance group called Kryptonite. She said, do you want to be in it? And I met her cousin Naomi, who is now one of my best friends still. And then she decided she didn't want to do it, but she took me to this youth centre. And I was like, oh my God, it's an arts youth centre.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I want to be here all the time. It's just loads of, I had a theatre and an art studio and a dance studio. So then my friend Naomi, we started dancing together. We were met through Corinne, and then my other friend Hind. So we were dancing together, and then it just grew by the time I was 16 to 23 other girls. Wow. But then 23 other girls at 16, the same age, is hell, right? Yeah. So I decided I wanted to start teaching younger children. Yeah. And I just Googled competitions that go abroad because I wanted to go abroad, and there was UK Hip Hop Championships, and if you won or top 3, you got to go to Las Vegas. Yeah. So I thought, let's just go. We qualified, so we came second when I was 17, and we fundraised all the money and went, and it was just the most
Vegas, baby. Can you imagine going to 17 to Vegas?
Yeah, it sounds great, but when you can't do anything,
you're just you're
just in the desert.
Yeah, we're here. We can't go out and do anything. Yeah. You have to be 21, of course. Yeah.
So it was just, I think I went 3 or 4 times before I was 21.
Get your fake IDs.
I don't in America.
You don't mess with it.
I don't mess with that in America. Maybe in England, but definitely not over there. But yeah, so once we done that, I think my mind was just really open to the standard of dance and where you can take it. And I didn't realize that you can do those sorts of things. So we just ended up building I guess almost like a dance school. Between 16 and 19, I think I received over £70,000 worth of funding to deliver community projects. Thank you. But I didn't realize what I was doing. I was just doing what I enjoyed. How old were you? When I started in the youth centre, I was 13. When I started teaching other children younger, I was 16. Yeah. But it was just, I enjoyed it. And I didn't realize what I was doing to help other children because these were just children like me.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I didn't look and go, oh my God, I'm helping people.
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, let's just do this because it's fun.
Yeah.
And then as you get older, you realize what you've done or how it's changed some people's lives or given them opportunities.
Yeah.
But when I was in university, the government announced the big society and then they were defunding a lot of the youth centres and whatnot.
Yeah.
And my lecturer asked me had I heard about social enterprise.
Yeah.
So then that's when we started Aim Sky High
Yeah.
or ASH. So they gave me a full scholarship for my master's. I wrote my dissertation on how to successfully transition voluntary and community organisations into successful social enterprises.
Yeah.
Focused it on primarily people from disadvantaged backgrounds,
Yeah.
and then done that and created ASH.
Which is amazing. And so that, what the reach to that is over, what, 500 kids a week?
Do you know, I'd have to think about it because I know it was that before COVID.
It was, yeah. But pre-COVID it was, but I know COVID's affected a lot of things. But
Yeah.
I mean, you guys,
But I would say that about now.
Yeah.
It's over 500 now,
Is
yeah.
it? Yeah.
So I think in our school we did have 215 before COVID. I think now we've got about 180.
Yeah.
It's not far off, but through schools and other work, yeah,
It's about 500,
about
isn't it?
500, yeah.
Which is amazing. And what's the age range of kids that you're helping?
Usually between 3 and 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, you target primarily disadvantaged kids.
Yeah.
And specifically, what is the reason why you do that?
I feel like my life mission is social mobility. So around anything I do, that's my passion. I just think, I don't know if I feel aggrieved, but I just feel like every child should have the same opportunities.
Yeah.
It's just not fair. It's not
Yeah.
fair that depending on, you know, where you're born or like what your circumstances are, that you don't get the same access to opportunities.
Yeah.
So we call it Aim Sky High because the aim is to teach these children how to lifelong transferable skills that will serve them well to be able to socially mobilise themselves.
Yeah.
I was in a studio with 7 girls the other day, a group that we have called Hit Squad, and they're 11 to 13.
Yeah.
And I explained to them, you know, about how hard it is to buy a house and what kind of money you need to do and how, you know, a lot of mortgages will only be 4 times your income, and then you also need a deposit, and then the schools that are based around there and how it affects what schools you go to, and then the difference between a good school and a not so good school, and how you end up competing in the same market even though you've come from totally different kind of I guess opportunities.
Yeah.
So I was just explaining to them that unfortunately for a majority of you guys, like I did, you're gonna have to work 10 times harder. So anytime we're doing exercise, it's not because I just want you to run 5 kilometers.
Yeah.
It's because it's the mindset.
Right.
It's not, you know, anytime I'm telling you to try your hardest every single time.
Yeah.
I know it's draining. It's not just because I want you to be the best dancers. It's because you need that mindset, and that mindset will stay with you forever.
So basically what you're teaching them is that you have to be so resilient because you're going to get knocked back. You're going to have to work harder.
Yeah.
When you say you're going to have to work harder, what do you mean?
So, for instance, like I was explaining to them, I mean, I'm lucky enough I've been able to put my son in a very good school, but I was explaining to them, you know, or even like what I posted on my Instagram the other day, you know, they're asking him to write essays at 7. I didn't even know how to do that until I was in university properly.
Yeah.
But then when you're competing with those children to get into the best universities,
Yeah.
you're going to have to figure that out yourself, or you're going to have to find the people, or, you know, you're going to have to do extra work because it's not going to be handed to you on a plate like it is to other people.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you start sometimes 10, 20, 30 steps behind. You can make that up, but you're just going to have to work harder.
You know, it's not only also about opportunities, but when it's about, you grow up in a certain environment, so you're exposed to certain things because of your family and then your social community. And if there aren't people around you that are achieving great things or are showing you possibilities or are showing you ways through adversity and aren't just staying pigeonholed, that's the problem, because you don't have anything else or meaningful to compare your life to. So it's almost like you're viewing somebody else and how they're living their life, but you don't see a bridge to how that's possible for you.
100%. And one of the main things that I love to do when we have the kids in is we bring in different people that are successful in their own right.
Yeah.
So, you know, I've brought in my friend Kingsley, who runs Mixtape Madness.
Yeah.
You know, And he spoke about what he does. He manages, or he used to manage. He still works with like Digger D and people like that.
Yeah.
Sit and speak to them. Or I brought in my friend who's an investor who made his millions and then has decided to become an investor, to explain to them what he's done and how he's come from his background.
Yeah.
But then we'll also bring in people in industry that are working in films and choreographing for them. So, and one thing that I try and do is try and teach them the value and understanding of what networking is. When these choreographers come in, try your best. Show them what you can do, because these will be the people auditioning you in 8 years.
Yeah.
We bring these people in on a regular basis for those who may want to be dancers, so their faces are recognised before they even go out to auditions.
Yeah.
So it's just things like that. It's not just, we're not just teaching them dance. There's a lot more to it, and I hope that one of the main things for me is, like, I had a mentor, right? I still speak to him. Is the CEO of HSBC UK.
Yeah.
And one thing that I never understood, in that I emailed him and I actually asked him, why do you always answer my emails so quickly, and why are you always so keen to talk to me? Because I couldn't fathom that I'm in a youth centre teaching children dance and I have nothing, but you still have time for me. So
What did
why
he
do you
say?
have time for me? He said, because the world needs more people like you.
And how did that make you feel?
Um,
Did you even take that in? Because I feel like you've not even taken that in.
I don't know. I think the thing is, he saw value in me. So I thought, wow, like, someone like him sees me of value, because I want to be like him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that relationship, and he always says he's done nothing, and I try and explain to him, you don't understand how powerful that's been, that you've taken the time to speak to me on a regular basis and just deploy any resource that I ask for, if you have it and if you can help, because people like me, we don't have access to that.
Yeah.
And like you say, your community, your surroundings are so limited.
Yeah.
It can be really difficult. I was speaking to a girl the other day. She's called Kate. We were on a business program together in 2013. She just received £100 million investment for her. It's hydroponics, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Like grow up farms, it's called.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I thought to myself, I remember telling her when we were on this program, I don't know anyone who owns a business, and she was shell shocked. And I thought, why is she shell shocked? Because it's not a normal thing.
Right.
And now I'm in the space I'm in. I get that. I know lots of business owners now,
Yeah.
and lots of freelancers. And I look back 10 years ago and I realised how limited my social circles were, and how much it's taken for me to be able to even get to a point where I know people in a similar boat.
Yeah.
And that's what I really hope that we can provide for those children, is a space where they know they can come to us. And some of my ex-students do, who are 24, 25, 26. Do you know anyone that does this? Yeah, of course I do. Here you go.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're right, it's all through networking and stuff. But if you don't have access, that's what it is, people like you. So going back to the CEO of HSBC, where he said, we need more people like you in this world. What do you think he meant?
Yeah, I think I did query him, and he just said, like, we need people that care more.
Yeah.
People that care about this world more.
So do you know what's really interesting? Because you admire him for everything that he's achieved professionally. And he looks at you, and he looks at somebody with so much heart, who's come from, limited circumstances and is doing unbelievable things. And I think that's, that is where we as human beings sometimes don't give ourselves enough credit. You're just on your own journey, doing your own thing and trailblazing, and you're always looking around you thinking, okay, I admire that person, I admire that person, I admire that person. That's kind of where I want to get to. But you never really stop to think that you are inspiring so many people who also look at you and think, wow, I want to do what Tina's doing.
I really appreciate that. And that intro to me, I thought to myself, wow, this sounds very grand.
But those are all the things you've achieved.
They
that's
are,
not me putting words in anyone's mouth. Those are things that are written about you. If anyone was to Google you, that's all that's going to come up. What I think it is, though, is part of your makeup.
Yeah.
And I get it. When you come from just, you've had to work for everything.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult to get to a point where you can give yourself a pat on the back and go, I've actually done well, because for you, you're like, I'm not even anywhere remotely near where I need to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And do you know what one of my worst traits, I think, is, and I'm really trying to work on it, but I don't know if I want to yet, is I just feel like nothing I do is ever good enough. That's how I feel all the time.
That is a level of perfectionism that you will never meet, because it's not possible. But you know what? I think that is what is fueling your tank
Yeah.
that drives you to do the next thing, to do the next thing, to do the next thing. But, you know, you may come to a point in your life where you're like, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
I'm so tired of doing. So, okay, tell me what is one of the most, proudest moments of your life, because we can at least recognize a couple of moments where you've gone, you know what? I don't know how I did it, but I'm so proud that I've got here.
Two things, right?
Good.
So
Tell me about them.
I went into the school to speak, my son's school to speak around the Black History Month. And one of the teachers came up to me and said, do you realise, did your son tell you what he said the other day? And I said, no. He said, we were all discussing who our Black role models are, and he said his was you.
Aww.
And that really touched me.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, and I know this just, so my mum, I sent my son to this school, right? And I put him in a different school, both are private, independent schools. And I put him in a different school because I thought, I don't know if I'm going to have the money to do independent high school.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll put him in a school that's going to make him pass his tests to go to a grammar school.
Yeah.
And I ended up making enough to send him to that school. And I didn't think I would at all. But this is 4 years earlier than he actually needed to be in there anyway.
Yeah.
So although I know in my head that I'd be able to do it, I just don't know when I didn't know when I'd be able to do it. And my mum's never seen that school. And my mum thinks sometimes, she tells me that I overwork and I stress too much and I should chill out. And being able to drive my mum into that school so she could see what my son is getting was it opened my mum's mind to understand why I work so hard or why I try and give him what I try and give him. And I will do the same for my daughter. She's just a bit younger. And it was a school that anytime our school used to, because I went to grammar school, but it was public.
Yeah.
Anytime our school used to compete against them, they'll just get beat. So they have great sports department and, they have resources, right? And I remember sitting in the car for 10 minutes and just thinking, it's amazing for my mum to see. My mum sacrificed so much. She gave me access to her life savings while I was building a company. I literally have her internet banking on my phone. And she, if I was having cash flow issues, she'd just give me the money. She allowed me to buy our family home, heavily discounted. So I've got a lot of equity in the house to be able to start building. Eventually, I want to start next year's property portfolio.
Yeah.
So she's given me not just another chance at life, but everything she has.
Wow.
So for her to walk into that school and see what I've actually done with her trust and her cash. I mean, I paid her back every penny, but that was it felt like taking a chance on myself was worth it. And I just was so glad that my mum can be proud of what she's achieved through me as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think sometimes when parents aren't able to do certain things for themselves, they want to make sure that they give their kids the platform to be able to do that. And it's amazing that she supported you and you're going to go on and be able to do incredible things for your kids. And your kids will never know hardship in the way that you have.
Yeah.
That's also an interesting cushion that you're going to give them,
It's really, and I toy with this sometimes. It's interesting because my mum, when I didn't pass my 11 plus, initially wanted to send me to private school and I told her not to waste her money.
Right.
I don't want you to waste your money. And she was crying, saying, I just wish I could do more for you. Yeah. So that's why when I took her into that school, it felt good for her to see.
Of a moment,
But I toy with this because the one thing I don't want my children to be is entitled. Yeah. So I really try and make sure that I don't do a lot for my kids. The only thing that I usually spend on is education. Yeah. I don't, they don't have loads of designer clothes and I don't do that. But but then sometimes I think, but why should they have to experience hardship?
Yeah.
Because I work so hard to help children from deprived backgrounds not have to experience that. And then I feel a bit Do
you know what it is? I think being a little bit further on than you with my own kids.
Yeah.
When I look back now about my motivation and my intention, I've always worked really, really hard and I'm a hugely driven person. And when I started to question why I've always been like that, it's a bit like you. I kind of felt like I had something to prove. to myself, you know, and to the world that, look, you know, I'm capable of doing amazing things, but it came from an insecurity.
Yeah.
It didn't come from security. It came from a real insecurity and a lack of self-worth, really,
Yeah.
and a lack of, you know, not lack of self-belief, but because I'd always put myself in situations, and like you, someone said no to it might hurt me, but I still keep going. But when I question my intentions and motivations, it's a lot to do with that, and that is the driver. And then part of that, when I started, you know, creating a cushion for the kids, particularly Rafi, there's quite a big age gap between Rafi, who's 12, and Leo, who's 4. So Rafi was my only child for the longest time. So he kind of got the best of everything. But I really kind of reined myself in with Leo because I was so determined to give Rafi everything that I think to some extent he's experienced no hardship. You know what I mean? So I really love what you're saying. I think investing your money into them wisely in terms of education is imperative. Like, I had a great education and that's been a great platform for me, but that was really my way. That was really my way into the next chapter of my life. If I wasn't educated, I wouldn't be doing the things that I'm doing now. But I recognized quite early on that what if I do well, everyone's happy. So it was my way of actually getting praise.
And that was the same for me, actually.
Was it?
Yeah, because my mum really struggled with my sister at a point. So as a kid, I just wanted to make her happy.
Yeah.
And I noticed that when I was doing well at school or when I'd done something that made her proud, she was happy.
Right.
So it was almost like I was trying to make my mum happy by just doing well.
Yeah.
And then I guess you take that on as an adult because, like you say, it's a self-worth thing, right?
100%.
Well, even if I don't feel good, I've got this award and that award and this award that says I've done something, which isn't the right attitude to have. And the issues you need to deal with. But at the time,
you're unaware of it. I think only when you develop self-awareness and you start to question your own motivation, it's really important to because I think a lot about what is my purpose, what is my intention. I've just blindly been on this trajectory and like it's always been, okay, the next thing. And it's not been because I'm massively materialistic or money motivated. That's probably one of the, you know, benefits of what I've been doing, but that's never been it. And then I've had to really step back and think, but what is it? Like, why is it that feel like I need certain things, and understanding that so much of what was driving me, so much of what was propelling me in a certain direction was because I just did not feel good enough about myself as a person. And that is something that I still, but people meet me and if I ever have this conversation, because I'm very honest about it now, before I would have seen it as vulnerability and weakness, and I never wanted to be weak. I don't see it like that now. You know, it's the same for me when you tell me. I'm slightly shocked about it because your exterior, your presentation is you're cool, you're calm, you're in control, you're going out there and you're smashing it. But, you know, beneath that, the hard exterior, there's all of this stuff going on, isn't it? And when you start to question your own motivation, I just think it really shapes you more as a human being. And I think what it's done is it's made me more compassionate and kinder to myself. And I've always been kind and compassionate to other people, but it has allowed me to relate a bit more to the struggle and why they may be doing certain things in a certain way. For you, I mean, obviously we've talked a lot about self-worth. Do you think that a lot of that comes from either being adopted or how you grew up, not having a lot and comparing yourself to other people? Or
do you know what the thing is? I'll be honest. It's a weird one because we didn't have a lot, but we didn't have nothing. My mum was a single mum. She was a social worker.
Yeah.
We still went on 2 holidays a year, you know, but she couldn't afford everything. But we
never went without.
Yeah, we never went without. No. I think it comes more from the adoption thing. It's just, I think no matter what happens, it's really interesting. And this is what I said I'm going to explain.
Yeah.
My dad actually found me last month.
Wow.
Yeah.
He found you?
Yeah. Well, it's a bit of a weird thing because I'd done Ancestry.com. Yes. Ancestry.com out here ruining lives, right? And
ruining lives? I know.
And I didn't realise, my friend said, when I done it, my friend said something like, you have 7 days to make your profile private once your results come through, so make sure you do that if you don't want to be found. But I didn't get an email, or it might have gone to junk to say that they'd been processed. Anyway, I get an email on a Saturday morning saying it appears I'm your father. And I was like, what the hell? And it was just the weirdest thing.
Tell me about how you felt when you got that email.
I laughed, to be honest. I was like, what the hell is going on? Like Saturday morning, lay in
Wow.
bed and and it was weird because my record said he never wanted to know me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then when he's reached out to me, I'm kind of like,
That's a contradiction, isn't it?
it's a contradiction, but also, I mean, I've spoke to him and I started to understand certain things, and I don't think there's any excuse for his behaviour, to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't think there is. But it reduces that sense of,
I wasn't wanted.
yeah, it's not as personal to me anymore.
Really?
Yeah, because I met him
Yeah.
and I see his character and I think that's a you problem.
Really?
Like that your character and the way you've behaved, that's not a reflection on me. And you can say, like, you can tell yourself that, but when you don't know the person, it's still hard
Well, in
to
your head, you
understand.
built up this idea of who your dad is,
Yeah.
and you have no idea. You've got no context.
Yeah.
You're just a little kid.
Yeah.
When you go back to those feelings, you're just a little kid that
Yeah.
feels rejected by your dad.
Yeah.
So what's
Do you know
amazing? Go on.
Sorry, the most interesting thing?
Yeah.
I thought I was half Jamaican my whole life. My record said I'm half Jamaican. I'm
What is
not.
he?
Grenadian. So like, it's only at 30, which is another thing that's come through that I've really understood. Now I actually know who I am at 30 years
Wow.
old. So everyone's like, how's it been meeting your dad? And I've been like, yeah, do you know what? Like, I'm not actually that fussed. I think I found my sense of security. When I had my children were only 2 blood relatives I've ever met.
Right.
So that really changed me and made me feel like, I can't even describe it. It gave me whatever I was missing, right?
Really?
Yeah, but that was the most irritating part and upsetting part of it all, because I've struggled so much to figure out my identity.
Yeah.
You know, like through not knowing, then being half Pakistani, then being half Bengali, and now I'm not Jamaican, when my whole Black cultural identity for 30 years has been me being brought up in a Jamaican household.
Wow.
And being Jamaican is like, it's difficult. As far as I'm concerned, I'm Jamaican.
Yeah.
But and Grenada's still a Caribbean island, but that's the thing out of everything that shook me to my core.
Really?
Found out I have 2 sisters, I have a brother.
Wow.
I spoke with both my sisters and met with one of
How
them.
was it?
Really interesting. It's just really interesting.
Because you're meeting them now as this dynamic mother. You're 30. You know, when you have these emotions, you're a kid, but you're not meeting them as a kid, are you? You
No.
meet them as this grown woman. So how was it though? Like, was it exciting? Was it nerve-wracking?
It is exciting. It is quite nice because they like, from what the conversations we've had, they seem like really lovely people, and I think it's always nice to have more siblings, I guess, isn't it? It's always going to be a good thing.
It's crazy though, imagining building a relationship with them at 30,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
But is that better than never knowing them at all?
Do you know what? When I look at my dad, I struggle to even say that, I actually look and think my life has been a lot better than it would have been with you in it, I feel.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So I actually feel, it's made me feel even more grateful that I've had the life that I have. And so I think it's also relinquished quite a lot of the feeling hard done by.
Right.
Because I recognise that actually
It was a blessing.
it's a massive blessing.
Yeah, and you know, I don't know how much you believe in the universe, but I do. And I always believe that everything happens in divine timing.
Yeah.
You were always meant to meet your dad, but maybe you weren't meant to meet him until you were where you are in your life now.
Oh, 100%. I will. Do you know what? My mum was so worried. She's like, oh, I'm so worried. Like, you know, these things don't always turn out right. Because she was a social worker for 30 years. Yeah. And she's like, you know, a lot of the time this doesn't go well. And I kept saying to mum, like, if I met him in my early 20s, I would have been a mess.
Yeah.
So, but at 30, where I am with my kids and where I am in my life, it's fine. I'm fine. Yeah. I'm in a good place. And I think I understand boundaries now. Yeah. So I understand that there's not a necessity really for him in my life, should I not want it. Right. And I've been fine. But I said to my mum, like, it is satisfying to not have to be out there looking and
thinking it's that my dad.
Yeah.
Like anyone could be that.
Yeah, anyone could be my dad.
Right.
But the weirdest thing is he's worked a 5 minutes walk away from my cousin's house for 40 odd years.
So you could have walked past him?
Yeah, probably have.
Do you look like him?
Yeah, fortunately, yeah.
But in a way, isn't that nice to at least see somebody familiar and you're like,
it's the weirdest thing ever.
Must be a weird thing.
Because
what similarities do you have?
Oh, do you know what? I'll be honest, I don't feel like he deserves airtime on here.
Really?
Yeah, sorry. I know that's not...
It's fine.
Because if he listens, I don't even want him to...
No, that's fine.
But the interesting thing is, my daughter doesn't look like anyone.
But she looks like him.
No, she looks like my granddad, his dad.
Wow.
So much. So that's been really weird.
It's nice though to see that. At least you know where it comes from.
Yeah.
Because you're right, that invisible idea of this, that, and the other. That is the most heartbreaking thing. I think it's nice to be able to put the piece in the jigsaw and go, I've got a more complete idea of who I am.
100%. And I feel like I'm still processing this now, but I feel a lot better for it. And like, I'm not saying I hate him, because I don't. And you know, he's a person. He's got his own issues going on, and whatever happened in his life. But I'm fine.
You're at peace. Would you ever find your birth mother, do you think?
I don't think I could.
Really?
Do you know what do you know what's really interesting, right? So apparently my sisters said that they found out about me because she came looking for me 10 years ago.
Wow.
Apparently she has no more children. And that makes me feel really sad.
Wow.
Because I feel like part of me wants her to know I'm okay.
Right.
But I just couldn't engage with her for two reasons. My adoptive mum has been amazing, and I just would never, especially in her living memory, want to do anything to disrespect her or make her feel unwanted, rejected, anything, because I couldn't have had a better mother. And then the second thing is...
do you think she would?
I just wouldn't want her to feel that way.
Okay.
I don't know. And she always says you have a right to find out who you are. But you know, one thing that stuck, and I'm glad that my dad found me first, because one thing that really frustrated me is, and I understand it actually, to be honest, it's almost like he feels like he's got a sense of ownership over me. Do you know what I mean? Like, not ownership, but you know, like, oh, you have the family bloodline and you look like this and this is your cousin and this is, and I'm thinking, shut up, like, you don't know me. And I know in his sense, he's just trying to be nice, but it's like, to me, as much as, like, you can't step in after 30 years and be a father when you didn't want to put your name on my birth certificate in case you got found out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, I can imagine that would be even stronger with a mother, because I know if I had a child and I gave that child up for adoption, whether I met them at 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, you are my child.
Yeah.
Like, do you know?
But you're
I think,
a mother.
Yeah.
So you know.
Yeah.
It's a different thing.
It is. And I just don't think I could cope with, I think it'd be too much for me.
Right.
If that makes sense, especially where I am. Maybe when I was 50, 60, I don't know. We'll see if I'll be in a better place to be able to do that. But I really don't think at this point in my life I could have that.
Is your profile still public on Ancestry?
Yeah.
So she could find you through there.
She could, but the thing is, we were saying this, it's really interesting because my Asian heritage is 39% Bengal and 11% Indian. There's no like mix. It's just 50% in Asia. Wow. Whereas with Black people, a lot of the time, it's very mixed, especially from the Caribbean because of the history of slavery. Yeah. So I feel like, I don't know, do you know many Asian people that do Ancestry.com? Because I don't.
I've done it.
Oh, have you?
So what's really interesting is my mum, one of my sisters is called Philia, so it's a Greek name. Yeah. So we've always been told that we've had Greek in our family, which makes a lot of sense. So when I did DNA, I was like, yeah, I'm at least like 40% Greek. And I did it. I'm not. I'm like 99.9% Pakistani or Kashmiri, whatever. Like point whatever. But I'm sure some of my siblings are definitely more Greek. But yeah, I've done it, and it's interesting because I've been approached by lots of half cousins or fourth related cousins. Or I've never connected with anybody. The ones that are like first, second cousins, I know them anyway. The ones that are like seventh or eighth, like we've got some in Finland or weird places. Yeah. I've never contacted, but I think it's a really interesting tool. I don't know, actually. I could never put myself in your shoes. I'm a naturally very curious person. So I've got friends that are adopted, and some of them have never had an inclination, desire, or anything to ever want to find their birth parents. And I totally respect that. They've had beautiful parents that have raised them and all fine. And then I've had others that have literally, it's devastated their lives not to know the birth parents, and they've gone out there, and sometimes it's been successful, sometimes it hasn't. But it's I don't know. I think that sense of belonging is interesting.
Do you know what it is, right? So, but it's different. Obviously, my sisters told me that she didn't have any more children, and if that's the case, it's a bit different. But the manager of the youth centre that I used to speak to, she was adopted, and she went and found her birth mother. But her birth mother had a daughter straight after her.
Wow.
And I remember literally seeing them. And she was sat on one side of the table and they were sat on the other side of the table. And I think that would ruin me.
So
Like if I ended up in a situation like that, where it's like they're close and then I've just kind of come in 30 years later, I don't think that would take a lot of, like, you know,
emotional capacity.
Yeah, I couldn't. It would ruin me because I think that sense of rejection is so strong.
Yeah.
And then for it to then almost happen, it's that whole thing. You can't help it. Although you can rationalise the fact that she wasn't in a good position and 6 years later she might have been in a better position to have a child.
Yeah.
I can't help but still feel like, why didn't you do enough for me then? Do you know? And I get it, but it's still, it just, I don't think that will ever go away. But I do really feel for her, especially now I'm a mother.
I get it, because you know what, difficult circumstances, really hard to be in that situation. You can rationalise it, but it's the emotional thing, you know, to really deal with that and process it, and that's a whole other level of stuff. And what you've done is you've just made yourself super busy.
Yeah.
So you're like, I don't really have to deal with this, process it. I know what's going on in the background, but you know what I really want to talk about? One of the most impressive things was, tell me about being on Forbes, because that is pretty damn impressive, girl.
Oh.
Tell me about the Forbes.
You know, it's really interesting. When I got approached, I almost said no.
Why?
Because I just felt like there's so much more I want to do. Is it the right time? Do you know what I mean? I just didn't know. He's Forbes, isn't it? Like,
Forbes, girl. It deserves a separate shout out. I mean, Forbes is pretty epic. Was it a bit of, I don't know who I think I am, or was it a bit of, wait to do? What was it? I'm interested.
I think
I don't know anyone that would have gone, I needed to think about Forbes.
because do you know what it is? I'm very like, I believe in PR and I believe in, you know, making everything bigger than it is in order to get more in. I get that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, my whole thing is I want to try and be as authentic and genuine as possible. And I don't want to be in Forbes making a big deal of something that I'm not.
Okay.
So, or things appearing bigger than they are, because I just never want to be that person.
Yeah.
But the article that he wrote was, and the thing is, he called me and said, look, I've got a space. Do you want to, like, we can do something? And the article that he wrote was very true to me. So I think I really do appreciate the way he's written it. And I think it was just a matter of not wanting to feel like I'm overinflating myself. But I think he got his, he did. He got it spot on. So, and I didn't realise the what am I trying to say? Until I started working in a stronger capacity with influencers and people, I didn't realise the how big it actually is to have a feature article in Forbes, like not just be mentioned.
Well, listen, what it does is it gives you credibility.
Yeah.
So it's going to make it much easier for you to walk in through a door, because it's a subconscious thing. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that is the way of the world. So actually for you, someone who's climbing up the ladder, trying to prove herself, like, that's an amazing endorsement.
Yeah, it is.
And that's going to open doors, and it will almost certainly have opened doors, right?
Yeah, it has, 100%.
But I love what you said about being authentic and credible, because I feel like that's what you are, and that's totally the essence. I remember when I first met you, it must have been, nearly a year ago now, and I had no idea, because you're so unassuming. And then it was only when I had a conversation with one of the founders of the company that we were doing some stuff for, and he told me about your story, and I was like, wow, because you do not walk into a room with an ego. You do not walk into a room with an attitude. You're just there quietly doing your own stuff, and I love that. And so down to your point about being authentic, I think you live, breathe, and sell it without even doing that. I want to talk to you about working with, because you work with some of the biggest grime artists in the UK. So talk to me about that.
So it's really interesting, actually. It's through the work that we do with kids, right?
Yeah.
So the Stormzy thing came about because he saw our kids dance, and it's actually an interesting story because I found out he was at Manchester United for a signing, right? And I was at a board meeting in Cardiff. I called one of my teachers and said, do a dance to Big for Your Boots. Put the little kids at the front that can flip. Take them to the signing. Wow. Tell the kids to ask, can they dance for him? Because people don't say no to a 7-year-old kid, but they'll say no to a 25-year-old adult.
Yes.
So tell the kids. So the kids asked him, and then they danced for him, and he loved it. And then he put a Twitter call out for us, got in contact with us, and he actually emailed me off his personal email and called me off his personal phone that he didn't withhold, just to say basically, I want to use you guys. But he sent me Vossi Bop like 4 years before he released it.
Wow.
Because he was like, I want you guys in that video, but he didn't end up releasing it.
Yeah.
So then he emailed me a couple of years later, which is even better for us because by now his profile's grown.
Oh, yeah.
And said something like, are you guys free to come and headline Wireless with me? If not, don't worry, I'm sure we'll sort something else out. And you're like,
what?
You're like,
What?
like anyone's gonna be like, yeah, sorry.
It's a yes from me.
So we're not free on that date, but let us know when
Yeah.
you're free. Next, we'll make something work. But yeah, he was really, really cool. He was really, really nice to the kids, and
because he's got this larger than life personality, and I've never met him. I've heard lovely things about him, but you always kind of wonder, like, are people like that still humble, and are they still good to the kids? And
yeah, like their team emailed me a couple of weeks ago to comp a load of tickets to his show for our children.
That's so nice.
Do you know what I mean? It's really nice. I do feel like he seems to be genuinely a nice person. I mean, I've not had like really a lot of dealings with him. It's more his team, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, he seems to be a really nice person. And gigs was when we done a video to his song.
Yeah.
And he liked it. He just DM'd us and was like, I want that on stage.
That's amazing.
And he was really nice. He was really nice to the kids, and he made sure they were looked after at the tech rehearsal. And, you know, he's just really nice. He was really nice and down to earth.
Yeah. Do you tend to use social media like as a tool to really push your agenda and what the kids are doing? I mean, it's an amazing platform, isn't it? So tell me some of the tricks. How do you like get visibility with? I feel like because what I'm sensing about you is you're a clever girl. You're like, right, I know how to get in front of this person. This is how we're going to do it. But what I like about you is you use your initiative.
Yeah.
You're the one that's driving it. You're not waiting for someone to pick up the phone and go. So tell me about some of the tricks that you use.
So, like, do you know what I used to do? We don't do it as much anymore because I feel like our profile is not it's not necessarily big enough, but
you are very well established.
People understand. So there's BBC One Extra, right? Every week they change the playlist. So whatever's on the A playlist means the artist is trying to push the song. So we'll do a video to that.
Right.
Tag the artist.
Right.
Try and get it to people who know the artist so that they reshare it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And if they like it, then usually they'll ask, can we share your video? Can we use it? Can you come on stage? Etc.
Yeah, clever.
So that was part of it in terms of music. And I just think in terms of socials, just making sure people are aware. And I know it sounds really ridiculous, but especially on Instagram, if you can get like certain people following you that are well known in
Who's
a
the most
culture.
famous person that follows you?
I don't know. Well, not me personally, but the company.
Go
I
on
mean,
then. Do you have one?
I don't know. Well, Stormzy doesn't have social media, does he?
Stormzy.
Mo Gilligan.
Oh.
Who else follows them? I can't remember. There's a few, you know, but like there's a few. I'd have to think about it because I don't actually deal with that social media myself anymore.
Too busy for it now, girl.
Yeah.
Okay, how do you stay motivated? How do you get up every day and work to the extraordinary level that you do?
It's your purpose, like you were saying before.
Yeah.
My purpose, part of me, like I know I'll never achieve this in terms of, but it is a goal that I just don't, my life goal is to try and make sure, well, I'll achieve this, but I was going to say every child, but as many children as possible don't have to grow up feeling the way that I did. That's what it is. I want every child to have as much opportunity as possible.
Yeah.
And I want every child to not have to grow up feeling worthless or unseen or unheard in whatever capacity that is. And that's my purpose that drives me. And also, I think in the last couple of years, what I've realised is as I've settled into adulthood, I know that sounds ridiculous because I'm 30, but I feel like I've finally settled into adulthood and understanding adults a bit more. There's lots of adults that don't understand how to do better for themselves, that feel trapped and are so unhappy. So I also want those people to be able to help themselves, because what I've realised is if you can help those people, they'll be able to help their own children in turn.
What would you say to anybody that right now feels really stuck, demotivated, and just doesn't know how to change their life?
Every single time I feel stuck, I read a book. I read books. I buy several different books and I don't even read the whole book. Yeah. I just read bits of a book and then I just speak to people. I just find people, speak to people, and sometimes things will just trigger you in your head. It's just the one thing you can't do is you just can't sit in it. you just
wallow
can't sit in
and
it.
feel
Yeah.
sorry for yourself.
Yeah. Or like you can have every right to do that, but do other stuff as well. So whilst you want to still get out, still go and do things, still meet people, talk to people, have conversation. And if you don't want to have conversation, like I said, read or listen to a podcast or something should hopefully trigger a thought that will make you go, that's a good idea.
I can do that.
Yeah, or maybe I should try that, Just don't sit in it.
I mean, you and I were talking about this before we started the podcast, but about who are we when we go through adversity, because that is a true marker of your resilience as a person. And I think we're both the same. I think when I've had some of my most darkest moments, that's when I've actually transformed my life in the most meaningful ways. I've actually done stuff where I'm like, I really don't feel like doing it, but I know I have to. I had the best bit of advice given to me, and someone said, when you're feeling shit and you're just not going through a good time, you should really pay such close attention to all the things that you don't want to do, because that's normally exactly what you need to do. And I have remembered that in my life, and honestly, that has transformed my life beyond recognition.
Yeah.
I don't want to go out, I don't want to see my friends. You absolutely need to do it. Oh, I don't really want to get up and I don't really want to go and do that. That's when I don't want to go. That's when if you force yourself to do those things, that is the stuff that pushes you through and gets you through the other side.
It's interesting because it's similar. That's something that resonated with me not long ago. It was a year ago, last year. I don't know if you know Paul from Sedulo. He has an accountancy firm.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So I was speaking to him and he said, he's talking about Alistair Brown, I think it is. I don't know. He's an athlete, whatever. Yeah. And he said he's got such resilience and he just goes, and I think he ran some stupid long time. And he's like, how do you train like that? Yeah. And he said, I just don't give myself a choice. Yeah. And I thought that just makes sense. Yeah. Because the reality is that we always, like, you have no choice but to find money to pay your mortgage. Right. Yeah, I have no choice but to pick up my kids from school. Yeah. I have no choice but to be a mum 7 days a week. Right. So really, I just need to start giving myself less options.
Yeah, just get on with it and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really helped, especially when I go out to do exercise, because I just think, this is just what I have to do now.
I love that. I'm going to have that as my motto. I just don't have a choice. Got to do it.
Yeah.
Got to get up and do it. Yeah, it's true, because we give ourselves too many get-outs.
Yeah.
And, there's a fine line between being totally hard on yourself and working yourself, to death. But the reality of it is, and I hate to talk about it like you got to work hard, but nothing in life comes easily. I've had to graft. I've had to work. I've had to do blood, sweat and tears. And sometimes I spent a lot of time doing the wrong stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've had to go, okay, that was a waste of time and I actually need to manage things better. But the one thing I can say to myself is my work ethic's always been on point, and I will work and work and work and work. And eventually, honestly, you do that, it will pay off.
It's really interesting because literally just before I came here, I was at a meeting with a guy and he said to me, the first time I came off the phone to you, I called someone and I said, I've never met anyone so self-assured and confident, who backs themselves so much. Yeah. And I said to him, it's not that I believe I'm the best or even good at anything. I can just assure you that I'll outwork 99.9% of people should I need to. Yeah. And because I know I'll outwork people, then I know that I'll be able to do it. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it is, I will outwork a majority of people. And that's why what I really try and drill home is just work ethic. Yeah. You can do whatever you want. And there's two words that my son knows, because I'm always telling him, hard work and consistency. Anything you want to do, hard work and consistency. Yeah.
More than anything, I think it's consistency, isn't it?
Yeah.
And just doing it and getting up and doing it regularly and doing the same stuff and developing really good habits for yourself. And also, I think we limit ourselves in terms of achieving our true potential, because we tell ourselves that we just can't do certain things, and we put ourselves in this little box and we ring fence ourselves. And look, I'm talking about even if you've achieved success. I talk to very successful people and they'll go, but I kind of pigeon myself to this kind of level, and then I wasn't going to, what would the world be like if we were like, I can actually do anything? What if we just worked in life where everything was limitless, and it was infinite possibilities, and we were just like, I want to do this, I don't know how. Yeah. And this is the thing, you don't need to know the how. I figured that out. I don't need to know how I'm going to do it. I just know that I need to mentally know that's where I'm going to get to.
And this is why, as controversial as it is, I understand he has his bad qualities. I love to watch someone like Kanye.
Kanye West. Yeah. Did you like the Yeezus
documentary? I've not watched it yet.
It's actually genius. I was not a Kanye fan.
Yeah.
And I watched that documentary, and I tell you something, I was blown away. I just kind of thought, yeah, this little easy ride into, became a producer. And then, you know what, that guy, he to me is the ultimate personification of never give up
Yeah.
and back yourself, because, he had a record deal with Jay-Z and Damon Dash, and they weren't letting him release his record, and then he put his own money in, and they didn't believe in him as a rapper. They were like, no, you're a producer. I mean, the stuff that guy did, I was like so G'd up. I was like, God, I can do anything. I can do anything when I watched him do that. And he's amazing.
There's one line, I can't remember what song it is.
In one of his songs, yeah.
Yeah, but it's from one of his early albums, and I think it might even be his first album. And he says something like, "Tell me who else will lock themselves away and make 5 beats a day for 3 summers. I deserve to be doing these numbers."
Yeah.
And that's always stuck with me as well.
Yeah, he grafted, and I mean, yeah, it just shows you his whole thing was, and I think a lot of it came from his mum, who's an amazing woman, because she raised him, I think, on her own, and she was his biggest supporter. She taught him, number one, you can do anything you want. She was his biggest supporter and biggest fan. And he was like, I can just do anything. I can do anything. And having that mindset, the proof's in the pudding, isn't it? I mean, I think it's a bit of a shame. He's obviously bipolar now, and see what's going on with him. But it's unequivocal, his work ethic. And, I don't know if you're into Formula One. I was never into it. And then I started watching the Netflix F1 series.
Okay.
Oh my God, I'm a convert. Because they really show you the dynamics of the teams, but they also really get into the headspace of the drivers. And you realise what supreme athletes they are, and actually what they've got to endure and what they've got to go through. But it's kind of shown a lot about Lewis Hamilton, and I love his story. I was never a big fan of him. But watching that, black kid, got into go-karting, didn't really have a lot of money. His dad did everything he could to finance him. He talks a lot about his how he grew up, and he was always last. People always wrote him off because he was black. He never had any black role models to live up to. And he said, I used to always get chosen last. And I always used to think to myself, when I get on the let's say football, when I get the football pitch, I'm going to work harder than any of you, and I'm going to prove to you why I deserve to be on this team. And he said, it's that mentality, that mindset of always being chosen last, or never being picked, or being the only black kid, that has made me so determined to be successful. And in a way, it isn't a good thing, because again, it's working on that premise of I need to prove to everyone that I'm good enough. But that's why I'm saying to you, sometimes the way that we grow up, even if we look back and go, that wasn't necessarily the best and it was unfair, we would not be who we are today
100%.
had we not gone through those things. And that's the beauty of everyone's story, right? It's about turning yourself away from being a victim.
Yeah.
And going, actually, how am I going to use what I've been through to empower myself to be the greatest version? Because that's all I've got.
It's really interesting, because mindset and mental is a lot. Even I go as far as sometimes, and I know it might sound a bit crazy, if someone tells me no in my email inbox, I delete it. Yeah, because I just don't want that in my space.
So energetically you get rid of it?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, do you know, if something's not working out, or someone's sorry, that's not going to work, or whatever, I'm just right, delete it, because it just needs to be out of my space. And I do that with a lot of things. It's just, if it just doesn't feel good, it's just out of my space.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, oh, what do you want to achieve, or where are you going next? And I literally tell people, I don't know. I'm just enjoying myself.
Oh, God.
I don't have, I have a purpose and a mission, but I couldn't tell you, if you said 5 years, where do you want to be? Don't know.
Yeah.
I just want to keep enjoying myself and enjoying the work that I do, and that is it. And just be a good mum.
Yeah. Well, you're an amazing mum.
Thank you.
To sort of end this podcast, I want you to think about what words you would say to inspire somebody to make a difference in their life, if they have come from, or have gone through some of the things that you've gone through.
I would say the first thing that comes to my mind is, you are so special. You're so individual in what you've experienced. Don't undervalue that. People undervalue themselves all the time, but nobody is you. And if you can find the beauty in that, then you'll be able to change the world.
That is a beautiful thing right there. I love that. Oh, thanks, Tina. It's been amazing.
Thanks for
you on.
having
I
me.
could honestly just chat to you for hours.
I could chat to you for hours.
Might have to do a number 2. No, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Hi guys, thank you so much for being on the Rise journey with me, Henna Riaz. This podcast has been brought to you by Marlbone Publishing. Please don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Rise with Henna.